All right, this is one of those moments where political confidence gets tested and doesn't quite hold up. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In this clip, Piers Morgan presses Carla Sands, a firm defender of Donald Trump, and what follows is something we've seen time and time again. A simple, direct question gets asked. Not complicated, not unfair, just straightforward. But instead of a clear answer, she dodges, she pivots, she avoids. And it's not because the question is difficult, it's because any honest answer would expose a deeper contradiction in the argument she's trying to defend. This isn't about a clever debate moment. It's about what happens when strong talking points are forced to face real scrutiny. The confidence starts to slip, the message loses clarity, and avoidance takes over. So let's watch the clip, no interruptions, no spin, and then break down exactly what went wrong.
Just to Greenland, we're going to be joined by a guest briefly, and I'll come to the panel for their reaction to this. Carla Sands was the US ambassador to Denmark during the first Trump administration and joins me now. Welcome to you. Many people are looking on slightly aghast at Donald Trump's rhetoric. He said yesterday the United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Green Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will. That's not going to happen. Militarily, without the vast power of the United States, much of which I built during my first term, and I'm now bringing to a new and even higher level, NATO wouldn't be an effective force or deterrent, not even close. They know, and I do, that NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's making it pretty clear he wants to take Greenland. Do you support this?
Well, Piers, I support the security and safety of the American people, and that is President Trump's main goal. He is working to make sure that you and I, if we're in the U.S., that we're safe, but also that our allies are safe and the world. Greenland is key because of many reasons. First of all, Greenland's going independent. They've said so, and they will go independent in the 21st century. I think Denmark has gaslighted them enough that they've slowed it down a little bit because they've got the Greenlanders terrified by doing a psyop on the Greenlanders, sadly. But President Trump understands he's going to install the Golden Dome. It's kind of like Israel's Iron Dome, but it involves Greenland and Alaska. They are the two pieces that are needed. Now, Greenland is going independent. President Trump will not let it fall into the hands of Russia or China. And in 2019, President Trump said to the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, who is the current Prime Minister of Denmark, and she's really good for the Danish people, not so good for the Greenlanders. President Trump said, look, I'm worried about Greenland. You haven't secured it. You have to. She goes, okay, I'm committing $200 million. We're going to invest in security for Greenland. Flash forward, she invested 1%, and it wasn't for security, $2 million. The rest, she did not invest in any security for Greenland because they just don't care. They want their money to go to social welfare programs in Denmark. That is what the government takes care of because that's what the people want. She's actually a decent prime minister, absolutely. But President Trump understands the urgency of making sure Greenland doesn't fall into the hands of Russia or China. The Greenlandic politicians have said, we want to have a closer relationship with China. And they've said to me personally, if the U.S. doesn't invest in our mining and our, infrastructure, we're going to get China to do it. So they don't understand the international ramifications. President Trump does. And when they go independent, he is not going to let them be in the hands of an adversary.
And if Donald Trump just decides to take Greenland, as he's intimating he may be compelled to do in his eyes, where does that leave us with China just taking Taiwan? What would be the moral distinction between the two things? Why shouldn't China just help themselves to Taiwan? Why shouldn't Vladimir Putin say, well, this is exactly what I'm doing with Ukraine? How dare you guys in the West take the high moral ground, given the United States has just helped itself to Greenland?
Well, because the despots of the world, these authoritarian figures, they see what President Trump does and they actually behave better. A strong America and a strong U.S. president gets the world order in a better place. We had terrible leadership over the past 4 years.
Vladimir Putin hasn't, with all due respect, Vladimir Putin, well, hang on.
Putin never invaded another country.
But Putin hasn't stopped bombing Ukraine from the moment Donald Trump came to power. In fact,
and that's a
he's
European
intensified
issue.
it.
Yeah, that's a European issue. So NATO is strong because of the US. And President Trump has been asking our European allies, please increase your ability to defend your own territory. Let's not forget that Denmark is in violation of the NATO Charter. Article 3 says that every NATO ally has the ability to defend their own territory. And then Article 5 come to the defense of their allies. Denmark has not a prayer to defend Greenland. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the money. It's a small economy about the size of the state of Colorado. Greenland is unsecure because Denmark doesn't have the ability. They're also out of line with NATO because they cannot and will never be able to defend their own territory, even if they get.
But would it be wrong legally and morally for China to then take Taiwan?
I do not believe that China will take Taiwan while President Trump is in office.
Right, but that wasn't my question. My question was, would it be legally and morally wrong of them to do it?
Well, you know, Taiwan is another subject. I don't want to conflate the two. I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to talk about Greenland and the fact that the people intend to go independent. They ultimately don't want to be part of Denmark. Denmark oppressed the people. They sterilized women. They kidnapped children and took them away from the families. They've done a lot of things and kept them living very primitively until the U.S. military. We occupied Greenland in the World War II time, and we actually stayed until the 90s when the Berlin Wall fell. Then all of us, our allies, which we need our allies, we love our allies, but we all took that peace dividend and stopped spending on our defense. President Trump is working as fast as he can, urging his military to build up our defenses, to, you know, rejuvenate our weapons.
Okay.
We're still making weapons like the 90s. China and Russia are not. They're developing very quickly and cheaply very capable weapons.
Okay, Carla Sands.
Just like that, the moment of truth comes, and it says everything. Carla Sands had a clear opportunity to answer a simple, direct question. And she didn't. Not because it was confusing or unfair, but because there was no answer that wouldn't expose a contradiction. So instead, she pivoted, deflected, and ultimately avoided it altogether. That silence, that was the real answer. Because the second Taiwan was brought into the conversation, the logic became unavoidable. Any honest response would have created a double standard, and she knew it. So rather than confront it, she stepped around it. But let's not ignore the other side of this. Piers Morgan had the opening right there. He could have pressed harder, demanded clarity, and held the line. Instead, he let it slide. And that matters. Because when accountability is within reach, but not enforced, the entire exchange loses weight. What we're left with is a moment that could have been decisive, but ends up feeling incomplete. Still, the takeaway is clear. When the pressure rises and the questions get real, the talking points stop working, and what's left is avoidance. So what do you think about that exchange?